Thailand no longer wants British tourists or expats in the country. You heard it right, guys. I was out for dinner last night with a friend of mine who happens to be the head of commercial partnerships for a Bangkok-based investment firm. He said we're going to see significant changes throughout 2024 and significant changes throughout 2025. What he told me set off the alarm bells, and it's also got me worried for my long-term future in Thailand. I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on exactly what he told me, which is going to raise concerns for any Brits out there that are looking to call Thailand their long-term residence. So, I was having dinner high up on a beautiful rooftop overlooking the skyline of Bangkok, a country that I hold very dear to my heart, hence me moving to Thailand on a full-time basis and enjoying every minute of it. Now, this conversation isn't narrated or directed by me. It was a conversation that I'm merely recapping and replaying to you. And it's no criticism to anybody in Thailand, nor the government or anybody in the tourism board, but it is something that had me very, very worried and started to question whether or not I've made a mistake. So the conversation went like this. My friend said to me, times have changed, people have changed, and so has the people that Thailand want to do business with. No longer does Thailand rely or look upon European and British tourism to fuel the economy, to invest in infrastructure, into advancements, into improvements. Now, they've always been a very independent country, but they've also welcomed outside investment. Hence, some of the biggest Asian investment firms being based in Thailand, more namely Bangkok. But he went on to say that no longer do these investment firms or the power players in Thailand welcome investment from European investors, and they are more inclined to offer incentives from business and taxation perspective to investors and consortiums from China and India. And something else that he mentioned to me last night really got the alarm bells ringing. He said, what do you make of the recent news? He said, with the authorities granting Russians, Indians and Chinese 90-day visas upon arrival. And I said, well, it's not great news because the same's not being offered to British and European. He said, well, what have you read into that? I already did come to my own conclusion, and I believe that it's, I wouldn't say favoritism, but I think it's preferential treatment and an indication on potentially who the Thai government would align with if something catastrophic in the world happens. And I think you know what I'm kind of playing, or should I say hinting at here. So make of that what you will. He also went on to say that British and European tourism has got Thailand to where it's at now, but it's going to be investment and tourism from Russia, China and India that gets Thailand to where it wants to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. He said perception of European tourists is that they would prefer to come to Thailand for a longer period of time with a smaller limited budget, i.e. come here for 4 weeks and have a lot smaller budget, as opposed to the new money coming out of Russia, China and India, where they still come here for 1 week, 2 weeks, but spend a lot more money in the economy. I see that without a shadow of a doubt. Places in Bangkok, places in Pattaya even. And when we're mentioning Indians, we're mentioning Chinese, also Taiwanese, Japanese and Korean I would throw into that as well. And it's definitely, I can see what he's saying. You know, when you do see European tourists over here, they're generally a little bit more casual in their attire. you can tell new money coming out from India and China because they've normally got the Louis Vuitton, Dolce & Gabbana bags, normally doled up to the nines, because that's their thing. You know, it reminds me a little bit of, I think, when the Brits went to Spain back in the 80s, it was very much a doled up affair. Now coming over to Thailand, it's a little bit more cash, it's a little bit more kind of flip-flop wearing beach bum kind of attire. And I get it. A lot of people do think, well, actually, rather than going to Thailand for 2 weeks, let's go with the same amount of money and go for a month. So I understand it. But he also turned around and said that it's more than just that. He understands that the consortiums and the investments led by the Indians and the Chinese are being offered favourable taxation and in investment terms as well, which is something we don't necessarily hear of in the mainstream news or the mainstream media. A lot of retirees in Thailand are quite frowned upon. They don't give a great reflection. And I've mentioned that time and time again. And I said, I think in a video or two ago, that I'm not shitting on British expats, but you know, there's some pretty poor examples. I myself, my local coffee shop up near Pratanak, I was in there with my girlfriend enjoying coffee, nice little vibe in there with some Chinese tourists by the side of us and I think some Koreans behind. And then you had a couple of English clear expats come in. And they were just making a mess of the place, no respect. And I'm sitting in there and I'm like, you are an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed to actually call you a fellow Brit. So I don't think the perception of British and European tourist, if I can kind of throw everyone into that bracket, especially British retirees have got a great reflection. They're known as cheap Charlies. Very tight, don't really put a great deal back in the economy and really just kind of utilise the lower cost of living that one has when based in Thailand. So clearly the objective for the Thai government is to change the image and perception of Thailand. One way in which they can do that is to price the cheap Charlie out of the market, price them, tax them in a way that it isn't favourable terms to now base yourself in Thailand, all the more trying to attract investment from China and India. He said you've got a lot of Indian-led consortiums and Chinese investors that are buying up large amounts of commercial freeholds in places like Beach Road, Second Road, Third Road, but also Walking Street. They're trying to bring in bigger global brands. They're trying to edge out and price out local independent establishments. He said, and a clear indication of that, he said, is that you're seeing beer bar complexes that are knocked down with no intention. See, this is where a lot of the local Pattaya news sites are getting things wrong because they're just making this the news up as they go around. The beer bar complexes are being knocked down because somebody wants to build a complex there, a condo complex. Well, you know, when you've got somebody that owns copious amounts of land and have money on the hip, they're not just going to knock something down hoping and wishing they're going to get planning consent. He said what the objective is to bulldoze the beer bar complex, then to rebuild it, price out all of the old cheap Charlies that used to drink in there that makes the place look scruffy and unattractive, and basically start a new beer bar complex up, slightly more expensive, attracting the Japanese, the Korean, the Chinese and the Indian tourists. So it's got nothing about somebody got it wrong, they've bulldozed a block, then they couldn't build their condo apartment. Business doesn't work like that. People don't just, you know, erase one revenue stream on the hope they get planning consent. Doesn't work like that. So a lot of the local Pattaya and news sites have actually got that wrong. As I said, they're trying to improve the image of Walking Street and they're doing so at a pace of knots at the moment. They've taken down all of the big signs and I think the excuse was that it's a fire hazard. Either that or it looks a little bit tacky. But even look at places in Bangkok. You know, there are a lot of the sois just off of Sukhumvit that have been bulldozed because they want to improve the site. They want the bigger global brands. And look, I'm in two minds with it. You know, I don't like seeing a Starbucks on every corner, but then I don't have a problem seeing a 7-Eleven on every corner. I do love the independence. I do or should I say, it is upsetting to see the old school places that we used to frequent back in our 20s when we were backpacking around the world, Koh San, Soi Ren, Brutry, places like that. You know, these old buildings that I promoted club nights in, DJ'd in, they've been bulldozed, and then all of a sudden there's a new shopping mall complex. So it is upsetting to see, but you can understand that Thailand wants to improve the image. No longer are they a backpacker, dope smoking, hippie venue where you can go and doss and stay for months on months, consuming copious amounts of mushrooms, Mary Jane, and, you know, drinking your cheap Chang. They want to attract international global trendsetters with money. They want to base their image on what Singapore have successfully done. Now, Singapore, hugely expensive, beautiful place, but you certainly don't go to Singapore if you are a cheap Charlie. In fact, I know so many people back in the days of backpacking that wrote Singapore off completely as a place to visit because it is so expensive. And I think that, in fact, I know that's the intention of the power players in Thailand. And the reason that I know that is my friend said that's exactly what they're looking to do. They're looking to improve and attract global investment from bigger players. No longer do they want to be put in the same category as Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, as that point where all the backpackers congregate to, like I said, do what they do, full moon parties, things like that. They want to attract the elites. They want to be based more on Singapore, Dubai. They want it to be the mecca of all things luxurious. I mean, just look at the shopping malls, look at the designer shops, the sheer volume of them. So what does this mean for long-term stayers? What does it mean for expats alike? Well, I would be worried. I would be very worried if I was you. Now, I don't want to sit down there and say, you know, this is going to happen overnight. I don't want to say it's going to happen in the next year or two. But I think, you know, if you're not burying your head in the sand, that Thailand is trying to change its image. It wants to do away with the cheap Charlies, with the dope smokers, with the hippies. You know, they want to push those people out to Cambodia, the Philippines, anywhere as long as they're not in Thailand. So I think if I was intended to be here for the rest of my life, I would question, is Thailand somewhere that I want to be for the rest of my life? Because I do think there's going to be more tax implications that are coming in. More recently, there has been the new tax, is it 30-40% of overseas income being made for people that reside in Thailand for over 180 days. Now, my understanding is that could potentially affect the digital nomads, but again, digital nomads don't have a particularly great reputation. They might not be the elephant pant wearing, bloody dreaded dope smokers that some of the hippies are, but they're also known for being a bit of a cheap Charlie, making a coffee last all afternoon, making a smoothie last all evening, and not spending a great deal of money, coming to Thailand for enough for 4 weeks and staying 6 months. So again, does the tax implications that they're looking to introduce, is it going to affect retirees? Is it going to affect digital nomads? We still want a little bit more conclusive guidance on exactly what that is going to stipulate. But again, another video perhaps. But here's my closing thought, and here's my conclusion to the conversation that I had with my friend last night. It's not going to change overnight, but I think you are going to see Thailand becoming more expensive, cleaner, less edgier. Clearly they're looking to improve, drastically improve Pattaya. And you know, should you still come and have a laugh? Can you still come to? Of course you can. It's all still there. You just have to look for it that little bit harder. But in the longer term play for Thailand, they want to be more Singapore. They want to be more Kuala Lumpur. So there it is, guys. That is my summary at the end of the day. Is it going to affect you tomorrow? No. Is it going to affect you in a year's time, a couple of years' time? Potentially. Is it going to ruin your lifestyle in Thailand? Probably not. unless you're a cheap Charlie. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. If so, let me know in the comments below. What is your view? Do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? Are you worried? What do you think is the goal and the plan for Thailand in 3 to 5 years' time? Let me know. Appreciate your time as always. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will be coming back to you again with more Thailand and lifestyle information.